Bodies in suitcases, sudden disappearances, and unexplained deaths. The world of cryptocurrency seems to be experiencing an alarming number of millionaire murders in recent years. But are these just a series of coincidental tragedies? Or is there something far more sinister at play here? With such a volatile and unregulated market, hundreds of millions of dollars up for grabs, and some of the most experienced hackers on the planet trying to find their own slice of the pie, it is no wonder why so many choose to avoid this type of investment entirely. Today, we're traveling across the globe to look at three of the most prolific deaths in cryptocurrency, the mystery that surrounds their deaths, and the possible forces at play in the dark. And I'm sure that all three of these stories will leave you heavily concerned. Welcome back to Coffeehouse Crime, folks. My name is Adrian, and today I have a very interesting video for you. Now, this might be a slightly different format to the usual, but let me assure you it is totally worth watching. Many of these stories are absolutely insane, and ones that I've thought about for weeks now. In this video, I won't be explaining what cryptocurrency is because I think we'll have a rather vague idea by now. But when people discuss the risks behind crypto, they are usually talking about your financial security and not your actual safety. Well, this video puts a whole new perspective on that theory. By the way, I post stories like this up to 2 times a week. If you'd like to see more, please consider subscribing. And now, with that said, please grab yourself a coffee, pull up a seat, and get ready for the deep dive. This is the dark underbelly of the crypto world. Buenos dias, folks. We begin our video today in Argentina, officially known as the Argentine Republic. As one of the largest countries in the world, Argentina has a population to boot, with more than 47 million residents calling this place home. The country is famous for its excellent wine and food, competitive football, music, and of course, tango. I'm talking about the dance, by the way, not the soda. Although Argentina's recorded crime rate is relatively low when compared to the rest of South America, many argue that it doesn't convict quite as many people as it should, thus of course skewing all results and statistics. But at least statistically speaking, it tends to be safer than its neighbors nearby. However, on July the 23rd, 2023, a dark discovery made by 2 children would do nothing to support that calming statement. Found southwest of Buenos Aires city center rests a small region known as Ingeniero Buge. Not even 10 square miles in size, Ingeniero Buge consists of many homes, a few parks, and a nature reserve or 2. It is quite normal for kids to play football in the area, and today was no different. But that is when 2 children, only just old enough to be considered as teenagers, stumbled across an inconspicuous suitcase. The suitcase wasn't here in the previous days they'd played next to the stream, and so, quite understandably, their curiosity got the better of them. As they prodded the suitcase and peered through the zipper, they came across a startling discovery, one they could barely comprehend. Found inside lay the dismembered remains of a white man in his 40s. His limbs had been cleanly cut, with both his head and his torso missing. This was a mortifying discovery. The 2 young boys called the authorities immediately, who, no surprise, locked down the crime scene and then took things over from there. While at the crime scene, investigators found the victim's legs and a left forearm in the suitcase, and after checking the nearby stream, they also found a whole right arm. As mentioned, the body parts were cleanly amputated, suggesting that whoever had done this was likely a professional. And although it was not initially clear who the body belonged to, it wouldn't take investigators long to find out. A 4-letter tattoo on one of the hands made it quite obvious. The body belonged to a man named Fernando Perez Algaba, who had disappeared from the city only 4 days prior. And soon enough, fingerprint analysis would confirm the identity. Now, there were various peculiar details about Fernando's life and the manner of his death, but there would be one thing that everyone would stop to pay attention to, and that was his wealth. Because Fernando was a crypto millionaire. With almost 1 million followers on Instagram, Fernando's profile sported a luxurious lifestyle, supported by crypto and smart decisions. However, judging by the number of likes that some of his posts received, I'm gonna hazard a guess and say that most of his followers were bought. When translated, his Instagram page says, "Tell me what you brag about, and I'll tell you what you lack. Life doesn't owe you anything. He who has magic doesn't need tricks. Now, according to local media, Fernando comes from a rags-to-riches backstory. In his childhood, he used to sell sandwiches and deliver pizzas, before eventually buying rundown vehicles so he could then repair and resell them at a higher price. In an interview, Fernando once said, "I traveled to Paraguay a lot to buy tires. They were much cheaper than in Argentina. This allowed me to refurbish the cars and then resell them at a better price." Moving into his 20s, Fernando transitioned to cryptocurrency, where he is said to have made a fortune by investing and then selling crypto tokens. And by the time he was 24 years old, he had a warehouse full of his own high-end vehicles. In another interview, Fernando said, "I started by investing $100,000 and doubled my profits in 4 days. I started with little study, I didn't have good results. Then I set up an office with 25 traders and realized that I was not the problem. Weak psychology was." Fernando's many Instagram photos show him riding a BMW, Porsche, Bentley, Mercedes, Range Rover, and various other vehicles, many of which were often seen with his cute little dog named Yamas. All of this was peppered between many extravagant photos of him living a lavish lifestyle, often wearing fancy watches and traveling to many exotic locations. After growing up in Argentina, Fernando moved to the United States, where he registered several companies, including a jet ski rental business which was found in Miami. In the months before his death, he decided to move to Spain, occasionally visiting Argentina for family and business-related purposes. But unfortunately, upon his most recent return, something terrible had happened to him, and now his body was found in the river in multiple pieces. 3 days after his limbs were discovered, officers responded to yet another concerning phone call, with this one also being made by another member of the public. Someone had come across a human torso, and after investigating the crime scene, detectives soon found a human head in a backpack nearby. It was very quickly established that both the head and the torso belonged to Fernando. According to his autopsy reports, he was shot 3 times in the chest, though according to some media outlets, it was twice in the back. And sadly, this is where Fernando's story slowly begins to unravel. As it turns out, he had made many enemies in the past, and being honest with you, most of them had a reason to be angry with him. As detectives began to dig deeper into his profile, they realized that although he had made millions through cryptocurrency investments, he was also in debt to several people and entities. And by the way, we are talking hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt here, not just to local people, but even to local gangs. Detectives would also find more than 200 angry messages in his inbox, so it became clear that he'd pissed off a lot of people. One of those messages read, "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to gouge out your eyes and cut off your hands so that you can't have any more money in your life. I swear on my children that I have no problem going to jail." And that message was from a man named Iglesias, who was owed more than $70,000. Another voice message, which was left by a man named, Adrian, said, "I'm not threatening you. I am telling you that I'm going to rip your head off. The money is mine, and you don't play with mine." My hands are up, I swear I didn't write that one. That was Nero. Now, neither of these men were related to the gang that he also owed $40,000 to, which I would argue is a far more terrifying entity to make angry. Fernando had also racked up, quote, "irrecoverable debts with Argentina's tax agency," leading some to believe that it could possibly have been an inside job. According to central bank records, one of his businesses, which was named Segepa, had 7 bounced checks which totaled more than 2.5 million pesos, the equivalent of $150,000 or 120,000 British pounds. To add to this, Fernando had more than 25 incidents on his criminal record, including drunk driving and assaulting a police officer. In fact, those very moments were recorded with this video right here. Shortly before his death, Fernando also left a note on his phone claiming that he had lost a lot of money investing in crypto, and that, furthermore, if something happened to him, he had already warned everyone close to him. In the weeks leading up to his death, Fernando had also posted cryptic messages hinting at deceit, betrayal, threats, and even murder. One of these posts showed Fernando in a car with an audio recording saying, "It's incredible how there are such evil people in the world that while you're thinking of helping them, they are there thinking of destroying you." In another post, he said, "Never trust anyone who doesn't show their loyalty to you. End of story. And in another voice note which was sent to his mum, he said, "Hello mum, I needed to clear my head as always. From here, I am realizing two things. That we can't escape from problems, and that problems will follow us." On July the 13th, Fernando messaged his landlord to say that he would vacate the property by the 19th of July. But when the landlord never heard back from him and then found his stuff within the property on that day, she reported his disappearance to the police. Of course, this suggesting that he had been abducted in that time frame. It was only after examining the suitcase that Fernando's limbs were found in that officers found several documents attached to a family in the local area. Now this led to a search warrant and, eventually, the arrest of a local trans woman named Nicole Almo Chamorro. And by the way, it is confirmed that Fernando did actually owe money to Nicole, and so it is possible that he was murdered to financially settle the score. But saying that, the authorities also believe that even if Nicole is responsible for Fernando's death, they must have had help from other people. Nevertheless, legal proceedings are still yet to begin, and some even believe that Nicole may have been framed in Fernando's death. As you can imagine, the authorities are remaining relatively tight-lipped on the situation, so this story may change a lot in the future. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. The investigation continues. For our next case, we're traveling 5,000 miles north from the cities and jungles of Argentina to more familiar territory. Welcome to the Ozarks, folks, a physiographic region that spans multiple states, but most notably Arkansas and Missouri, both of which are crucial in this case. Now, you might be familiar with this region for Netflix's wildly successful series named The Ozarks, and unfortunately, this story does not help paint a friendlier picture. It was on May the 21st, 2023, that a doctor and crypto millionaire named John Forsyth went missing. John was a 49-year-old man with a very prosperous future. During his childhood, he had grown up with 5 sisters and a brother, and was also known to be happy and passionate. He studied mathematics at university, but eventually would become a doctor at the Mercy Hospital in Cassville, Missouri. For most of his adulthood, John lived a very normal lifestyle. He married his wife in 1995 before divorcing her in 2019, and although they would remarry in 2020, they once again divorced by April 2022. Now, over the course of their relationship, they had 7 children together, and apparently, despite their divorce, the relationship remained healthy and amicable. After legal proceedings took place, John was ordered to pay $4,000 a month in child support, plus an additional $15,000 a month in other expenses, whatever that means. I mean, that sounds a lot to me, but maybe that's just normal in these situations. Honestly, I wouldn't know. Now, fortunately, John could easily afford these payments, and that wasn't just because he was a doctor. The truth is that he was also a cryptocurrency millionaire. To put things bluntly, Mr. Forsyth was one of the early ones. He mined and owned Bitcoin in 2016, back when its value was dirt cheap, and then held on to it through the peaks and troughs. John also co-founded OnfoCoin, a referral-based cryptocurrency project dubbed the People's Currency. He also played a crucial role in developing blockchain technology and decentralized finance, making him a well-respected cryptocurrency community man. In his own words, it became obvious to me that math-based currencies like Bitcoin would eventually supplant sovereign notes. I mined Bitcoin very early and then held on to them, and the massive appreciation of those assets allowed me to invest in another cryptocurrency. It is worth noting here that John always had a solid reputation of helping others, not just at work, but back at home with family and friends too. I mean, it comes with being a doctor, and to add to that, he had always helped his brother with his various health issues, and was a good father to his children. And on that note, he wasn't bitter about the divorce either. In fact, John had already fallen in love with another woman named Laura Barnett, who also worked at the hospital. Not only were the two engaged, but they were also now expecting a baby together. And John, he was absolutely over the moon about this. And apparently, according to his brother, he was the happiest he had been in many years. Now, with so much going on in his life, it was quite normal for John to section certain aspects of it away from close friends and family. And so, while he was a caring and kind person, he was also rather crafty with what he told them about his crypto business. Again though, John seemed extraordinarily happy with his life and the direction it was going. That was, of course, until he vanished. On Sunday, May the 21st, 2023, something was clearly wrong when John missed his 7 p.m. shift at the hospital. Now, John had never missed a shift before without telling anyone in the 15 years he had been there. So, this was an immediate red flag to his colleagues and loved ones when he suddenly vanished. At the time of his disappearance, John was living in an RV next to the hospital where he worked. So, bad traffic was off the list of excuses. When the authorities got there, they found it to be unlocked, and that, furthermore, he had left his 5 cell phones, laptop, and keys inside. And only 2 days later, they found his black Infiniti sedan abandoned nearby at the Castle Aquatic Park. His car keys, passport, and briefcase were found inside, and apparently, it had been parked in, quote, a very hidden location, in a place where it seems like cars are not supposed to go. After reviewing local surveillance footage, detectives found him to be walking towards his RV at roughly 7 a.m. while texting his fiancée. He seemed happy in these messages and told her that he would see her later, but that is when he suddenly stopped responding to all of her messages. According to officers, another surveillance camera captured him driving and parking his black car in the Aquatic Park parking lot at 7:12 a.m. 10 minutes later, a white SUV arrived and parked next to him. He was then seen getting into this vehicle for a short while before exiting afterwards. The white SUV then leaves a few minutes later, and John is seen walking around the parking lot 10 to 15 minutes after that. He then walked away from his car, never to be seen again. Several law enforcement agencies, including the Missouri State Highway Patrol, searched about a 9-mile radius around the park using people, dogs, and drones. John's family would also set up a Facebook page seeking for any help and information, but despite their best efforts, he sadly was nowhere to be found. That would be until 9 days later, when an update came in the most horrific of ways. On May the 30th, 2023, 2 men were kayaking in Beaver Lake, located 20 miles south in Arkansas, and that is where they came across John's body floating in the water. Quite clearly, he had been dead for quite some time. Officers were dispatched to the crime scene immediately. It was apparent that he had died from a gunshot wound, but the authorities would not say where he had been shot or whether it appeared to be self-inflicted. Now, of course, this has left many unanswered questions in the case. And although the Benton County coroner confirmed that an autopsy had been completed, he also stated that the results would not be released until the investigation ended. The news was sure to devastate his family, both old and new. His brother, fiancé, and ex-wife were all devastated by it, and they all immediately suspected that foul play was involved. To quote his brother, Richard, he said, "We're in shock, and I suspect foul play. He wouldn't miss a shift, even if his eyeballs were hanging out of their sockets. He's punctual in the extreme. It was an immediate red flag." His fiancée, Laura, was distraught, and after claiming that he was the love of her life, she is now faced with raising his child as a single parent. A terrible challenge, no matter what position you are in. So, of course, the big questions here are, what exactly happened to John? Was this an accident? Was it self-inflicted? Or was someone out to murder him? With him last seen talking to someone in a white SUV, many wonder if perhaps that person knows what happened to John. Of course though, the authorities are remaining tight-lipped on the situation, leading many to speculate. Saying that, John was also seen alive and well after the SUV drove away, so it is possible that they have nothing to do with this story. As we know, he then walked away from his own vehicle and out of sight of the surveillance camera, never to be seen alive again. And so, did he meet someone by chance maybe? Or was someone out to get him? Or was this just one terrible accident? Or even taking his own life? Well, as it turns out, John had actually made enemies in the past. In fact, back in the year 2022, he was even kidnapped by masked assailants, as confirmed by his brother. During this time, he was zip-tied before being driven to a dark, cold and lonely bridge. He was then threatened before being let go. The thing is, John never reported this to the police because he believed that he was in continued danger. I mean, he told no one about this. His brother didn't even find out until after he passed away. The only person to know about this was one of John's best friends, but even still, John had no idea why he was kidnapped. He did believe though that it was crypto related. According to reports, the authorities apparently do not suspect foul play, which is in direct contradiction to the opinions of John's family and close friends, all of whom strongly reject any suggestion that he took his own life. You see, John was a happy, successful, and ambitious man, and was never the type to accept defeat or think about death. There are strange details to highlight, however. It is noted that John had allegedly sent large amounts of money to his family in the days leading up to his disappearance. So, it does beg the question, did he know that something was wrong? Perhaps he knew that someone was after him, or maybe he was thinking about the end of the road. On the flip side, he did ask Laura to marry him only 3 days before disappearing, which is not something you'd expect from a man who was contemplating death. To add to this, he was also aware that she was now pregnant with his child, and John was a very caring and thoughtful man. Kidnapping aside, John also experienced long feuds with other people online, some of whom would even hack his computer and deliberately try to cause him harm. So maybe they decided to take things one step further and end his life. There are issues within the investigation itself too. When John's family inquired about how they identified his body, detectives allegedly responded by saying that they recognized his face, and simply that was it. In addition to this, forensic test results have never been disclosed to the public, and apparently there are no leads or interviews in the current investigation. Quite frankly, a lot of this sounds quite suspicious to me. It is worth remembering though that the authorities may know much more than they are currently leading on, and of course that is to maximize the potential chances of catching a potential murderer. So, was John murdered, or did he take his own life? And with this investigation so patchy, can we be sure to trust? So, was John murdered, or did he take his own life? And while there may be a valid reason why this case seems so patchy at the moment, can we really be sure why? Much like our previous case, this one is shrouded in mystery, and the investigation still continues to this day. And John's family, old and new, still struggle in smoke and mirrors. Our next case takes us south to the Caribbean island of Puerto Rico. With a population of 3.2 million residents and a gorgeous climate, Puerto Rico is a busy island that attracts plenty of tourists. Its rather unique position as an unincorporated US territory also means that many wealthy Americans can appreciate the country as a low-tax jurisdiction. Now, I'm not implying that anyone in this story is guilty of such a thing, but it is worth highlighting. In the year 2022, 29-year-old Nikolai Mushegian spent most of his time between his home in Florida and on the island of Puerto Rico. And although he was born in Russia, he and his family moved to the US when he was just a small child. Nikolai attended Carnegie Mellon University, where he graduated in the year 2014. While at university, he showed a keen interest in technology and finance, eventually leading him to cryptocurrency. Much like our other characters, he was a major player in the crypto scene. You see, Nikolai was an early developer of MakerDAO and played a pivotal role in developing stablecoin systems. These stablecoins are designed to minimize the volatility typically associated with cryptocurrencies, therefore making them more suitable for everyday transactions and financial applications. His efforts here were for a very good cause. Nikolai advocated for a more transparent and decentralized system, and was seen as an influential developer who wanted to change the landscape around him. As an early developer and co-founder of MakerDAO, Nikolai made a lot of money. Now, it is unclear how much this guy made in his 20s, but allow the numbers to speak for themselves. He donated more than $4.2 million worth of cryptocurrency to his university, owned several properties throughout Florida and Puerto Rico, and enjoyed a 1,500 square foot luxurious home on the island, which is estimated to be worth a cool $6 million or 5 million British pounds. With panoramic water views, the lakefront home featured a saltwater pool, a newly renovated kitchen with granite countertops, and an outdoor kitchen with a grill and a beautiful view. Now, Nikolai was a very collected, calm, and docile young person. He was intelligent, and he always took his time to think about things before doing them. However, in the month leading up to his unfortunate death, there were telling signs that things were not going well for him. Whether you'd like to label it as an ever-worsening situation for whatever reason, or simply just paranoia, Nikolai was becoming increasingly concerned for his life. I mean, for one, he had recently broken up with his girlfriend, but not for the most straightforward of reasons. And I say that because he actually believed that she was a secret spy who was working for a criminal organization. You see, Nikolai believed that his ex-girlfriend had even planted a bogus laptop in his home and framed him as an enemy to the CIA. So, let's dive a little deeper into Nikolai's beliefs, because this is where it starts to get very, very strange. On September the 5th, 2022, Nikolai tweeted, 3 possible futures for me. Number 1, suicided by CIA. Number 2, CIA brain damaged slave asset. Or number 3, worst nightmare of people who fucked up with me until now. I am sure these are the only options. Almost 2 months later, and in his final tweet ever posted, he said, CIA and Mossad and pedo elite are running some kind of sex trafficking entrapment blackmail ring out of Puerto Rico and the Caribbean islands. They are going to frame me with a laptop planted by my ex-girlfriend who was a spy. They will torture me to death. And to make things even more concerning, only 4 hours after making this tweet, Nikolai Mushegian was dead. He had drowned in the ocean nearby. Although this does sound like murder, Puerto Rico Police Bureau's Homicide Division, who investigated the matter, say they believe several factors in this investigation point towards Nikolai taking his own life. Now, I know this sounds quite fishy, but it is worth noting that his family also believed that his mental health had been deteriorating in the months leading up to his death. And unfortunately, they believed he was also reaching a breaking point. And to add to this counter-argument, friends within the cryptosphere also describe him as brilliant, but also troubled. So, the question is, did Nikolai take his own life, or was something else at play in the background? Well, to begin with, Nikolai's body was found in the waters near Ashford Beach, which is an area well known for its dangerous swimming conditions. Now, this beach usually has signs warning people not to swim in the area, mostly due to its dangerous undercurrents and its rocky conditions. But some of those signs had actually been washed away by a hurricane only 2 months prior, leaving many uninformed tourists at risk. The thing is, Nikolai was not a tourist, and to add to that, there were no indications to suggest that he'd been surfing prior to his death. So, why was Nikolai in the water? Now, it is possible, in combination with his rather apprehensive tweets only a few hours prior, that Nikolai may have suffered some sort of psychotic break. After that, he may have ran into the water, accidentally drowned, and then washed up on Ashford Beach. Now, there is a chance that investigators even have proof of this, but have not disclosed it to the public, but only his family. But whatever it is, they seem pretty adamant that it was some sort of relapse with his mental health. As far as we know, Nikolai's investigation is officially closed, with the cause of his death officially marked as drowning through accident or taking his own life. As already mentioned, many of his close friends and family believe that he experienced some sort of psychotic break, but others think he may have fallen victim to the exact thing he tweeted about only a few hours prior. Now, a bit of basic psychology here, but we are all naturally programmed to identify patterns and connect dots where we can see them. That is part of our survival instinct as a species, after all. So, when Nikolai creates the riskiest tweet of his life by claiming that the CIA and Mossad will execute him, and then he is found dead only a few hours later, it is an extraordinarily alarming coincidence that will make many question if it was a coincidence at all. But the truth is that Nikolai's mental health had been dwindling in the months leading up to his death. So, it is possible that this was simply a self-inflicted accident that may have ended in tragedy. Now, cryptocurrency assets are volatile and a high-risk investment, but usually that definition implies a risk to the money you put into crypto and not your actual life. Now, I'm not going to cover the basics of investment, but what I will say is that you should not worry about death through crypto. All of the stories we have covered here today involve men who are heavily invested into cryptocurrency, and by heavily, I mean far into the millions. Fernando was wrong to owe money to so many people, and as for Nikolai, he may have simply been neglecting his already poor mental health. But I will admit that John's story is shrouded in mystery. So with that in mind, what are your thoughts about these 3 stories? I would love to know your opinions, because these 3 are so open-ended. As always, let me know what you think in the comments down below, and while you're there, let me know what you think about this format of video. It was slightly different, but I actually quite enjoyed this one. And would you like to see more cryptocurrency cases? Because, quite honestly, there are tons out there. Anyway folks, that's pretty much the end of the video today. Thank you so much for making it this far. As always, if you want to support me in the channel, check out my Patreon here. Alternatively, check out my social media here, most notably my Instagram. And also, if you want to grab a bag of my very own coffee, check out classifiedcoffeeco.com. This stuff is seriously good. I've gone through about a dozen bags now. Anyway folks, that is it for me today. Thank you again so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you again very soon for another one. Until that moment arrives though, remember to look after yourself, look after each other, and of course, as always, stay safe. Thank you, and goodbye.